Penchant for bad TV themes, and so Mr. Belvedere's in my repertoire. Thanks everyone for joining us here. This is the last session. This is the developing community relationships. So we have what, 3 hours? 3 hours. No using the bathroom. No, I'm kidding. We're going to try to keep it closer to 40 minutes. I know everyone's been drinking from the fire hose today, so hang tight. The fire hose is still open for another 45 minutes or so, but hang tight. So a couple things that we're going to focus on at the end of this session. We really want everyone to understand the social and economic mission of a tool library and how to communicate that with both internal audiences and external audiences. You need to understand how your message changes depending upon where your tool library is, whether you're making early initial asks or looking for continuing funding, things like that. You also need to know how to communicate with members and people in the community. So the language may change or the topics may change as you're talking with folks. John's also going to talk about how to build a healthy community within the tool library itself. So how do you really engage with folks day to day? How do you get the work done? How do you keep morale up? How do you create like a positive atmosphere?
Positive atmosphere.
Yeah, that's right. And then Arolia is going to sort of bring it all together at the end and share some thoughts, I think, wrapping it up and weaving together a little bit through this internal and external communication stuff. I'm going to just be up here as a traffic cop and try to field questions as we go and try to sort of slow us down or speed us up as necessary. So just raise your hand if you have any questions. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Cool. So Mike Froehlich again with West Philly Tool Library. So I was going to talk, when I was playing this earlier this week, I was going to really talk about the focus, sort of like what we did at the West Philly Tool Library to reach out to community organizations, which community organizations we sort of met with, how we did it, the messaging that we did it, what we asked of them. And I'll still do that a little bit. But I think this has been a fantastic day, and I've learned a whole lot. And I think that one thing that we should also make sure that we talk more about is sort of like the racial and economic justice component of the work the tool libraries do. And so I thought I would sort of like shift gears from what I was going to do and just sort of like perhaps kind of dangerously talk extemporaneously on sort of that part of our mission. So when the West Philly Tool Library was organizing, we sort of made a decision early on that the white 20-somethings, sorry y'all, were gonna find us anyway. No matter what we did, when we opened the doors, we didn't have to do much work for them to find us. What we did need to do a lot more work on, especially because the group that was doing the original organizing was a majority white group, was to make sure that it's mostly in West Philly, it's mostly African American, some Asian American, some Latino. Sort of like knew what our mission was, knew why we were opening a tool library, and sort of like ask them to support us. So in that vein, in the beginning, we met with like countless churches, and every time I'd go to church and I'd talk to the pastor, I'd be like, "This is the whole idea about why we're starting this." I should say primarily African American churches. Go and say, and then sort of like they think, "Oh, okay, that sounds like a cool idea." And then I'd be like, "Who else should I talk to in our neighborhood?" The people, by the way, all the leadership of the tool library, except for Cassie, I think, lives near this is our neighborhood. These are all the members of the tool library. This is Philadelphia. This is like where City Hall is here. And if you're a tourist to Philly, this is like the cheesesteaks and shit are down here. All right. So, but this is West Philly. As you might imagine, the tool library right there. And like we all, this morning I drove, and so I started at my house, and then I went over to Kathleen's house, and then I went to Judson's, then I went to Sean's place and Judson's house, like, 'cause we're all like in here, and then of course we got a 95 and came down. So we're all sort of like living in our neighborhood. So I would go to the pastors and say, you know, so this is what we're about to start. What do you think? You know, and then I sort of like explain the whole situation, and I'd be like, then who else should we talk to? And so in that way, before sort of we had opened our doors, we sort of like gotten the support of about 40 like churches and child care centers and community organizations and rec centers and all that, all who were living and working and had some involvement right around here. Okay. We made mistakes, just to be clear on this. Like I'll give you one example, the most obvious example, and one that I'm still embarrassed about. Okay, guess where the West Philly Tool Library is? It's in Southwest Philly.
Oh my God.
We named it the West Philly Tool Library, and then we got offered this sweet deal at a place in Southwest Philly. But by then it had changed. The West Philly branding and everything had. So we still get shit for that. Rightfully so. And we sort of like, yeah, I know. I know. I'm sorry. So that was part of the beginning, because like early on, like if we opened our doors and we were just serving new homeowners who didn't even grow up in Philadelphia, then all right, that's cool. It's cool to have a tool library that does that stuff, but it's not. It wouldn't be why I am so dedicated to the tool library, and why I work, why we've all have worked so hard on it. What we wanted to do is to make sure that. Let me just tell you who lives in our neighborhood. So in our zip code, 19143 covers like this area. It's 84% black, so 11% white. A 29% poverty rate. only 13% have college degrees, and the median household income is just north of $30,000, $30,391. So earlier on you asked about the credit card thing. It wasn't even a question, really. You know, of course we're not going to require credit cards, but it wasn't it was like to be a deal breaker. So we wanted to make sure that the tool library like actually served the folks who lived in our neighborhood. And we've done that with moderate success. What did I say a second ago? Like over 80% are African American. Right now, the active members are about 40% people of color. So it's not the 80% or 85% that's our neighborhood, but we're constantly working on that, constantly focusing on that, on why is that, to make sure that the people that use our tool library represent the people that live in our neighborhood. So we do that in a bunch of different ways. Early on, we started having a series of classes, and when we had, like many of you guys do, but we made sure that the classes that we held were not at the tool library. For one, we didn't have the beautiful space that many folks do, and we couldn't fit anybody in it. But we wanted to sort of like basically take the tool library on the road, right? So we partnered with different community associations throughout the neighborhoods. And so up here, we partnered with the Saunders Park Community Association up there. We partnered with the Enterprise Center Community Development Corporation, which is right here. Partnered with the Cedar Park Neighbors, which is right here. We partnered with like a transitional housing program at one point, and the whole idea is that you go to these free classes and then you get a certificate for a free tool for a free annual membership. So that was a way to sort of like bring more folks in. We also, as part of our outreach, that we made sure that the places that we were going and talking about the tool library as well were places that we knew would have a diverse group of folks. But it's also come up in other ways, and I was talking with Charlotte, the executive director, about whether she'd be comfortable telling the story, because recently there was a story which I think sort of like illustrates like how we as tool library fans have to, if we want our tool libraries to be sort of like open and welcoming to everybody from our neighborhoods, we have to sort of like constantly be aware of this. And so I think I'll actually turn it over to Charlotte to tell the story, actually.
Okay, so to preface this, I get really emotional talking about this. It upsets me. Mike probably thinks I'm
stand
a
up.
little irrational at times. In our neighborhood, there are changes that are occurring. There's resistance to change by our neighbors, and as Mike said, we're very dedicated to making sure that our space is inclusive of all members. We do that by not offering the credit card, or not requiring the credit cards, making sure our keys are accessible to everyone. But we're right off of a commercial corridor, which Mike said earlier that there's a landlord occupying, or who owns 50% of it. He has his own personal interests. So with that, there are changes coming to our commercial corridor, and next to us, a brew supply store went in. So now we were one of 3 spaces. The 2 others were vacant. Now we have a brew supply and a vacant lot on the other side. So this young guy comes in, and he has a business on the other side of the city, but he's actually from New Jersey, which to us is like, oh my God. You're from New Jersey, you're coming to Philadelphia to start your brew supply company. Like, great. So he moved next door to us. He comes over to us and he says that he got this grant from Commerce under the city, and he has a grant to refinish his facade. And I also work at the city. That's the other thing I do. So I was like really irritated that the city was going to give him money to put forward this plan. And his plan was to paint a mural. And behind that, I was also an art student in undergrad, and I was a painter. And I always thought that the mural he proposed was terrible as from an artistic standpoint. But he also, the mural that he proposed, he didn't ask any neighbors. He did no community outreach. He didn't even ask us until after he had come up with the design. And he shows it to us, and it's taking over his third, our third, and the vacant third. And it shows there were 3 white men in it who all had beards and were wearing flannel and who were very muscular. And there were hops.
There's anything wrong with
I'm not muscular.
But there were, so, and from in the middle of the mural was a golden city that didn't all represent Philadelphia as far as what the skyline looked like, but golden buildings coming out from black clouds, and from the sky were planes dropping bombs, which were kegs. And to me, it was very much like, it was entirely inappropriate. And so we all decided we're going to go to bat for the West Philly Tool Library. And if this guy's going to put this mural up, we're going to rally and let our community know that we're behind them and we're not going to stand for it. And we're all ready to like move. But I just heard yesterday, he came in with a very accusatory tone and said, our mural's not going through. You have something to do with that.
We didn't, but we did have a conversation with him about how it, you know, the mural didn't really represent our neighborhood, and it didn't represent the people that use the tool library, and it was being done sort of. It's across the street from like people who live there, and they're gonna have to look out their windows and see this every day, and walk past it and all this. And so we did talk with him, and
he couldn't pronounce Art Nouveau, so I was like, okay. He was reading from an email, and he was like, Art Nouveau.
So, I mean, I left that meeting thinking that changes were going to be made, and so I was as surprised as anyone else that it got canned. But my point is that, you know, I think, John, you're talking about the welcoming, making the neighborhood welcoming? Inside. In the doors. But I think that there's lots of things that we ought to do if we are committed, and I think we all are committed, that tool libraries should serve many different types of people, and not just but should also serve people who sort of are trying to preserve the only wealth that they have, which is their house, by, you know, repairing their plumbing or something, so that they don't lose their kitchen floor or their bathroom floor. if we want to make sure that we're open and available and welcoming folks who need a cheap access to tools and the knowledge how to use those tools, if we're committed to all of that, then I think that we need to both be sort of affirmative in reaching out and partnering with other established community organizations that have if we don't have the relationships with those already, those groups already, reaching out and partnering with those organizations that do, number one, and then number two is be very vigilant about what does our space look like, and how do people feel when they come in, and how are they treated, and all that stuff to make sure that we know that our tool library, that all of our tool libraries are open to everybody. And how's that for a segue, John?
Radical.
Right.
Mike,
Oh, sure.
Can I ask one clarifying question before? I just wanted to understand. It sounds like you all have done a really remarkable job understanding the community that you're in. How do you get some of the racial and ethnic demographics to be able to understand how you're tracking success, actually reflecting the community that you're in? Just so folks can start.
Say it again.
Where do you get your demographic data? So that
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. So the race data, we did a survey I think in 2013 or so. And earlier I was on my computer trying to find the results of that survey, and I couldn't find it. My recollection was that survey showed that about half of the people that we were serving identified as a race other than white. Around the 40% that I mentioned, that served as an estimate as to who's coming in the door.
Honestly, as a nonprofit organization, that should be just something you do with your membership anyway. As an organization, that's just something you should be doing with your membership on the way in the door, filing their demographics. As soon as they're signing up, that should be one of the questions you have on your form. Is
a lot of people take immediate offense to that, and that's
the offense comes in when you start dictating. You can only choose one. Coming from a person of color, the offense comes in when you start telling them they can only choose one race. When you start dictating how they can identify themselves, if you just broaden that demographic a little, the choices, the multiple choice a little bit more.
So what would be the best? Because that's interesting.
Choose all that apply to you.
Yeah.
Choose all that apply. The worst thing someone could say to me is pick one, because my father is mostly Native American and part African American, and my mother's white. So you're telling me to pick one? I'm offended. Don't tell me who I am. You asked who I am. Let me tell you who I am, and then you can figure out how to serve me.
I think
That's a better segue.
can I add? But if we all collect people's addresses, you can use it if you had the time to track it, or to tie it back to census tracts, and to tell the story that way.
It's a little more work.
Yeah, a lot more work, but
if you haven't started in that way, that's another way to come to those conclusions.
We were thinking of sending a form as a confirmation email after people become members, and giving them the opportunity, so that we're not asking income, we're not asking ethnicity immediately as they're sign up as a member. So I know it'll have we'll have less of a return of information, but I don't know if there's any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think that's a viable thing to do.
And explain. When we did it, we explained on the top of it why we were doing it, and we blamed it on funders. Really. But
Blame everything.
right. Exactly. We did an anonymous survey inside the tool library. And this conversation does. Please don't misunderstand me. We try very hard at the Westerly Tool Library, but we know we certainly could be doing a lot more. And I'm not up here saying y'all should be look at how cool we are. I'm just sort of trying to explain some of the things that we do, and some of the conversations that I've had today. I'm like, God, we really need to do another one of those updated surveys as well.
Well, and the thing is we're never going to be doing the right thing. We live in a time a long time that has been racially charged. There's a lot of disparity. We live in a country where people are given less opportunity strictly based off of their race. And we also live with systematic racism that we all are afflicted with. So what it really takes is changing to step outside of your comfort zone and to try to step into the shoes of someone else. Now, you're never going to fully understand what it's like. You're never going to fully understand what those needs are, or how, or what their lifestyles are like, and the way they receive information best. But the most important thing is to try, because what you're doing is actually really cool, and hardly anybody does it. Now, you might not be doing it might not be the solution, but at least you're doing something, and that's what needs to be happening. We all need to be putting 110% into that specifically, because otherwise you're just preaching to your own damn choir. That's just real. I mean, I'm the most blunt person you're probably going to meet in this whole thing, so I'm going to be pretty upfront about all this, especially race-related issues, because it affects me deeply, and it really bothers me that oftentimes I feel like the resources in my neighborhoods aren't directed towards me at all. So it's refreshing to hear that, and it's really, I was getting choked up listening to you. I'm going to get choked up right now. I'm seriously gonna cry. Our city's being ruined. Our city's being torn apart. And to hear somebody say that they heard about a mural like that and that they were willing to stand up for their community, I can't tell you how much that means to me to hear that, because I watched murals go on all over my city that did not represent my community at all. Didn't represent my neighborhood, and it was in the name of get the hell out of here. And that's exactly what we all had to do, was leave. And I stuck around because I'm willing to fight for it, but not everybody has the time, energy, or resources to do that. So it really is our job. If you really want to be offering a resource to people you really, really think need it, then get down in there and get on the streets in there with them and meet them. Go to their home. Go to their place that they hang out. Go to their bar, and quit being so scared of them. You know, it's like I work for this program in the city, and this video is probably going to get my ass in trouble. But I work for a program in the city that's called the Graffiti Abatement Program, and the amount of racism that I hear out of our task force. These are people that think they're trying to help the community. These are people that think that they're trying to do something right. And that they fear another demographic, they fear another race. They have so much fear behind their own damn movement, you know? And it's like, I honestly feel like, you know, you and I, Ross, talked about how it's the first thing out of people's mouths that when you say, I want to start a tool library where everyone's going to steal your stuff, who do they think is going to steal their stuff? Who do they think is going to steal your tools? It's not the white guy living next door. They think that Mexican guy living down the street who's taking care of all his kids and working his ass off is going to steal your tools, when he's probably the least likely person to do it. So it's really hard for me. It's really hard for me to have this conversation without crying, because I've been on the wrong end of the stick my whole damn life.
Partnering with various groups, 30, 40 members or something. What do those partnerships look like? Is it a matter of connecting constituents? Is it a matter of kind of, I think you mentioned taking the show on the road. What does that look like?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when we talked to 40 groups, they were essentially courtesy calls, really. Letting people know, this is what we're planning. Do they want to join us? This is who to call if you have questions about what this is about. Please come and visit us. Later, after we opened our doors, we partnered with many of them on different projects, but certainly not all of them. I mean, that's a good question. Like, what are you asking? What do you ask for? Sometimes it will be just like you know, just a courtesy call. As I mentioned, sometimes it's asking for a letter of support. Gene was talking about getting a letter from the hardware store. We similarly, there was a locally owned lumber yard near us that we got a letter of support from, so that when we went to our politicians, they knew that this is not, that we were welcomed by the neighborhood. Sometimes it was people who are sort of elected officials we knew listened to more than they would listen to us. And so we asked them to contact the city officials. Very rarely was it asking for money, because most of them were just a little less broke than we were. But yeah, for the most part, it was just sort of the relationship building, so that when their congregants or their constituents or their friends or their neighbors sort of like started asking questions about the tool library, they could say, yeah, they came and visited me, and they told me what was going to go on, and so it was building the goodwill. One of the things that I'm most proud of the tool library, I can't take too much credit for anything that y'all have done since I've left, or since I've stopped being involved day to day. But one of the things that I love is that in like the 2 or 3 block area around the tool library now, it's like 1 out of every 3 or 4 like people, or because these dots are of houses, and so when you like look in, like 1 out of every 3 or 4 people in houses in the neighborhood, like in the immediate neighborhood, are members of the tool library.
Sean?
Man, I can't go after all that.
Sorry.
Give me super things, please. all of this together about working with community, we could all like work harder and do better. That is like an incredibly important thing that we have to like put into focus and really like and put a lot of thought into. So that it like transitions into the spaces that we are building also. So the front doors of your space, and as soon as somebody comes in those doors, so this I was like thinking like it's like we are all, this is not the trip that we took. This is like the journey that we are all on is to build like this really healthy thing that can support everybody. Where we're at right now, our neighborhood, we had a huge support from the artist community. Like when we were building, like half the people when we would go around and talk about what we were going to build, they were like, oh, we want to make furniture. So we had a lot of people that were like wanted to do like fine woodworking, and a community that wanted to like use the tool library. So my talk is more about the driver on that journey, the bus driver of the funky mothership that we're all trying to like build together. So when somebody comes into the space, they need to be greeted by a person who completely believes in your mission about giving access to tools. I always say to people that our tool library, we help people that have money save money. We help people that don't have money get access to tools. So that is like a unifier. Everybody in our space is on the same level. And we need the person who is sitting at the desk when somebody comes in to recognize that, and whether it is somebody coming in to like do a furniture building project, or we have some like really crazy stories from the neighborhood, or some, like I'll tell one crazy story. No, that's bad. It's just bad. Electrical people trying to hook up their electrical services to their houses that have been cut by power companies. Everybody, like that one, we didn't quite celebrate that one as much as probably we should have, but everybody's project that comes through our door, we celebrate it. We ask them what they are working on. If it's their first time learning how to do something. It's a really powerful thing that we do by providing access to tools and information. So the front person of your library is there to support that, and there to say, hey, not when somebody comes through the door, we're very, very clear about, this isn't Home Depot. When you walk through the door, we're not like, oh, how can we help you? We've had volunteers that did that in the past, and it didn't last. We don't want people to feel uncomfortable. You know, like we always say, let people come in, if they have questions, do it, but we're there to like celebrate everybody's small victories. Where am I? And so we're like really clear about the community that we want to attract in the space. This is our volunteers, this is our members. We always say, just be cool. That's a really important thing to us. And I know it's like kind of a hard thing to believe, but no matter who you are, what your project is, like we just want you to be respectful with our equipment, respectful with the people in the that are in this community inside of these doors. And then when you take it out of our space and share it with other people, that you're also like carrying our mission forward and saying like, oh, like it's just a cool thing. It's not there for making money. You know, they're like, we are trying to build a smart business that can support itself. But it's not we are not making money off of the tools. It's just access. So I kind of forgot. So your volunteers, you get all different types of people that come in, and we have a library with 100 volunteers. You guys have 100 volunteers. One of our last meetings, so we have almost 30 volunteers at this point. We are very careful about who comes in to our space to represent our library. I'd imagine if we just let every person come in that that wants to volunteer for us, then we would like lose control over our image and the kind of space that we're trying to build. It's very important that we don't end up with somebody who's going to direct it or make somebody else feel bad or like their small victory isn't a victory. Everything to us is a big deal. We have people that have come in, and I'm sure you guys have too, first time ever using a drill, and that's huge. That's a mega thing for that person, and like such a transformative process to like get involved with. There's one person in particular who now she's not a volunteer for us yet, but she is like part of our family, like part of our crew, and she helps us out. She's in the city office, and we work with her, and she's always looking out for us. So that she's an awesome, like one of our awesome people to carry out our mission. I was gonna say something. I forgot. So the volunteers that we have brought in from that community, some people, we know that they use the library. They're in all the time, and now we have the public workshop too, so we can like really, really zoom in on certain people that are using our library a lot. But selecting out people from those different crews we have a couple volunteers that completely rehab the house with access to tools from our cool library. And they came to us after that, I think partially out of guilt, because they probably saved like $30,000 to $70,000, like a couple of these houses, like 4,000 square foot row houses in this city that were completely rehabbed with our tools. Alex isn't here, so I'll like call him out. Did a ton of this work like himself. He took a half a year off of work to rebuild a house, used our library, and now he's one of our most dedicated volunteers. So like there's like a little bit of a payment in that, like by letting somebody volunteer, like being a volunteer in the space is almost payment enough, for I think in my opinion, and I hope you guys like would back me up on that, but like the spaces that you run, people coming in and saying thank you for what you do. I wouldn't have been able to do this without it. And just being like behind, like getting to be the bus driver that day, sitting behind the desk, and having that thank you, just getting to hear it is payment, So our volunteers generally do three-hour shifts a month, and but I think half of them are there just for that, just to be a part of that crew. So about community in the space, we direct it. we direct it by pulling, like trying to say to those volunteers or those people that are heavy users, we're like, wow, do you think you would like to volunteer with us? And almost all of the time they're like, really? Are you serious? I can do that? And it's like, yes, absolutely. We would love to have you like join this family and be a part of this crew. I'm like gonna like backtrack a little bit. When people come into our space, we're like about building the community that's coming in. Before volunteers and just like anybody coming in our space, we're very clear about like no ego. Like it's a no ego space. I'm gonna skip ahead a couple slides because this is just us like having a blast together as like our volunteer crews, which is like really important. We do a lot of events outside the library. Some are like really cool to like meet other groups of people and just have like a blast together and strap a kid to a dolly, you know, as the front end of a reckless. He was wearing a helmet. It's like back to the road. But like a lot of people before they come into the space, their vision of woodworking or processes or tools or doing these things might look like that like crazy long road that's going to end in like this very sophisticated like space where it's really hard to like bring in and understand and like get better with working with tools. So in our space, immediately we try to break that down. The first person, our bus driver, our front person to the library, is they don't have to be an amazing tool user. They just have to be engaged in like people's like small victories, or if they need help, being able to say, I don't know, I have no idea what that is. I don't know what that tool is, but I would love to find out with you. So we have a computer in the library for doing research. So and that's like a small victory even for some of our librarians. A lot of our librarians, I think that's another form of payment for them for their life, for being you know, coming in and working in that space is like the being able to gain that knowledge themselves. So that is, everything that's in the space is about learning, working together, growing together. We recently had the Baltimore Business Journal come in to write an article about the tool library, which is like really cool. But I came in after she had been here for an hour, and she came up to me and she said, I've been here for an hour. 3 different times I watched somebody stop what they were working on and to help somebody else, and then they introduce themselves to that person. That we tell that story in our safety class, and we tell that it's like really important. We talk about building community in our space, and because we're saying that so much when it's coming through the front door, and our volunteers are, you know, like saying it also, that's like part of the people that we're attracting, those people like just like from before they even come to the space, because they hear about the community that's being built. So we say it all of the time, and when anybody comes in for a project, it's, what are you working on? What are you doing? You know, it's like this, you know, scraping tile in my basement. That's like a really shitty job, and it's really cool to recognize that and be like, wow, good job, that's awesome. Or, you know, like DK making like this like really cool piece of furniture, like all of those things are like really, really special. And like recognizing that is kind of like a leveler for people. When they come in and they realize like how cool everybody is to each other, they see it and they just like automatically participate in it. It was really big goal of ours to build a community that was just not like a traditional guys woodworking shop. We say that in the safety class, and I would say we're maybe 50 to 60% women in our classes, and we say that also. And that, I think just talking about that and celebrating those things, like it takes it, or like it spreads it even farther. So people are really proud. You know, I've taught knife classes, the chef's knife making class, to like all women. Most like fun classes I've had, the knives are usually a little bit nicer, and but that's like a really powerful thing to talk about. And then when other people talk about it, it's like spreading it out even farther.
I was just gonna say too, when you talk about celebrating projects, a really, really good thing is to offer them the option of emailing you pictures of their projects and then featuring those projects. It literally brings a floodgate of volunteers in because they're like, I want my project featured too. And so they come in and they bring them and you're like, oh yeah, no, I'll definitely put it on. And you're so handy with tools. Do you know how to fix them? Do you know how to do this? Could you volunteer on maybe we need to have this torn up and rebuild this portion of our library? Do you know how to do that since you just did it to your house? Could you help us with it?
So we do that. We have partner people with classes. We do. We lend out floor refinishing equipment. We built 2 small floors that people can test those tools out on. So we say, come in and destroy our little floors before you go home and do that. We've had a class in floor refinishing, and people link up in that class and help each other with their floors at their houses. So building community through those classes that's a really cool thing too. But yeah, getting images from people, I like it when my images get put them on, yeah, exactly. That's a really cool thing. About bringing in volunteers. One thing that we really do, when somebody comes in and they say, oh, I'm this and you need it, and I'm here to do that for you guys. We're usually cool, yeah, we'll get back to you on that. It's that's not something we want at all. Our instructors, most of our instructors have come from our family and started out as users, healthy users of our library. So we built most of our teachers, and that's exactly what we want. When somebody comes in, they're like, I'm an amazing this, and I want to come and speak at your crew. It's no, you talk with us. If you come in and want to teach a class, you have to be a member of the library for 2 months, or 3 months. Yeah, 3 months you have to be a member, an active member of the library before we'll consider you to be a volunteer. And when we meet as a collective basically and talk about people that we want to bring in to our gang. So especially if you guys have 100 volunteers, that's got to be a really tough thing to try to not control an identity, but make sure it's always a healthy identity. Make sure
it's totally different story.
Yeah.
Because it's totally different.
It's good.
We don't have anybody hired for each job that you guys doing. We have 5 people of them just to do publicity or do the website or just because everybody has only a few hours in a month that they can provide. So that's why we're splitting the job a lot. We don't have a good person at the doorway. I mean, it's a total different way of thinking.
Yeah, well, maybe we can just explain a little bit how we work. We have the board of administration, and then we have committees for different stuff. We have the communication and the membership and volunteers committees, and we have a tool committee, workshop committee, and finance committee. So each of these committees maybe have between 4 and 10 persons from time to time, and it's very horizontal. So just the administration, we are maybe 25 volunteers. We're all volunteers. And then we have the people that are volunteers in the workshop to help people, and then the volunteers that are librarians. People give maybe 8 hours a month, and except for the ones that are in the administration, they give maybe more 5 to 10 hours a week for themselves.
Yeah. But we ask them to give 8 hours. When they become volunteers, we ask them to commit to give 8 hours a month, which is 2 hours a week, or 4 shifts. No, it's 2 shifts in a month.
Yeah. And in exchange, they get a free membership for this. Yeah, for the.
That's awesome. So we do for the 3 shifts, the 3 3-hour shifts a month. We give shop access outside of classes and and we give our volunteers free classes that aren't full. So it's open shop access when there's no classes and there's open shop and things like that. So that's like payment in the library, like we do pay our instructors, but the like building the community, a lot of people buy in just to be like a volunteer and to get that like experience. And we also have like a big shop that people get to use, like take advantage of it. So I think at like one of our last meetings, everybody was kind of deciding on how many volunteers we should have. And because like we want to keep it like a small, like we're really close. Like all of us, we go to events together. We'll all like go camping together. I mean, we all, like everybody in this room are like, we're probably are all friends and don't completely like know it yet, that we are all like the same versions of like very, very similar people. We would all get along like really well. That's why we're always trying to figure like our library, and like when we get a new volunteer, it's like a really emotional thing. Our family is like growing and getting bigger. Sometimes me and Piper joke about not being able to like handle like such an emotional, like job where it's like so many impactful things, like with different different reactions, not reactions, but different relationships with like so many cool people. Did you have a question? No? Oh.
Have you ever had a time where somebody wants to volunteer and you really don't want them to for some reason? Like you just think they'll be terrible at it, and how do you handle that?
Yes. Just say no.
You just say no.
I can answer that because I'm going to talk about that tomorrow too. So in the beginning, we just like accepted anybody that wanted to volunteer and quickly learned that maybe that wasn't the best idea. We were very lucky in that the few people that kept returning were amazing and stayed with us and have been with us. But then we also figured out that there is some training involved with being a librarian, as you guys all know. Like learning the software, like being able to parlay like the mission of your library, and what John was talking about. It's not like we're trying to form this like elitist club of volunteer librarians. It's really like finding people that need this community and that can welcome others in that are like-minded. And help people that maybe aren't like-minded yet get there. So when you meet somebody that like they want to volunteer real bad,
The mansplainers.
The mansplainers, thank you.
Bingo.
The mansplainers, that's a tough one. So when you meet some mansplainers, and they really want to volunteer because they know so much and they want to tell you everything that they know, we kind of put them through like a rigorous training process. Like we kind of have people jump through a lot of hoops, volunteers, because we want to make sure they're going to stay. Like it's a time commitment and it's a community commitment, and they naturally sort of weed themselves out. I mean, there is some situations where we're just like, all of our volunteer shifts are full right now, but as soon as we have availability, like I will email you.
And that's easy for us to do because we have so many right now and we have a packed schedule that for us to say that, we're like, yeah, we're full right now. It's easy to say that.
Did you have a question?
Kind of comment about what happens when we get people who want to volunteer at the Ottawa Tool Library. When someone wants to volunteer, they contact our volunteer coordinator, and everyone will get a chance. You'll be put onto a shift, you'll get trained, and we'll see if you mesh with us, I guess. Because someone could come in, say, I want to volunteer, and you talk to them for 30 seconds, and you might get a bad impression of them then, but it just could be because they're shy. You give them a chance, you work with them for 4 hours, and you might get a completely different view of who they are, the knowledge they have.
Yeah.
That's what the 2 month or the 3 month period of them being active members in the library. That's our testing period. That's for us to say like, are they cool? Are they gonna hover over every woman that comes in the shop and watch them like work on a drill press? Because they're afraid they're gonna do something weird. Like.
Yeah, like all volunteers have to be members for that period of time. That's like another way that we can kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Weed people out. I hate to use that term. Yes, because like if they don't have the motivation to come in and join and like check things out, like how are they going to come every week and like volunteer and contribute
And understand the system.
and understand the system and like really help to grow the thing and be welcoming to people that might not be the kind of people that live in their neighborhood. Like how are they going to be open to that if they can't come down and join and become a member?
And most of all, embrace the ethos.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work being the coolest kids you know.
Mm-hmm. And kind.
Especially the kind part.
Yeah.
And that's the funny part is that like, I mean, I think all of us, like I was, you know, I didn't necessarily have like a lot of friends in high school. So I think a lot of us are like that. You know, we have like our weird social anxieties. Like I'm actually a really private person, but it's easy for me to like act like I'm extroverted. But you know, having a community that you can slowly grow into or quickly grow into is really important, and this is like provides a foundation for that. And we have volunteers that it has taken them years to open up. You know, they were always solid, they always showed up, they were always really helpful. They just didn't talk a lot. And then all of a sudden, they were like, oh, you know, I can take care of that huge thing, or I can be there for that, I can do that. Like, they have totally come into their own. And it just makes you realize, like, everybody grows into that role differently and at a different pace. And so it's cool to honor that. If you can just tell, like, if you can sense that someone is, like, a great person, they might just not be the same type of person that you are. So that's important too, is like knowing the right people to say no to.
But when you build that a healthy community in the space, it's infectious, and it brings in more like-minded people. It builds like a bigger volunteer base. You know, like we do keep bringing in new volunteers, even though we say we're not. You know, like every time like somebody cool comes in, we're like, yeah, you're in, absolutely. April's our newest. Mecca, like just like badass people that are now like in the crew. But it's infectious, and we celebrate everything. Do we celebrate everything? We have like a lot of mini parties. What's that?
We should celebrate more, but it's okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
We kind of like sometimes when you get to a certain point and you have so many people and there's so many different relationships happening, it's hard to celebrate. It's hard to, you know, like really focus on one thing or one, you know, like one person or like birthdays and things like that. So that was something that we also like talked about. Is like in our community, like if we got too big, then we wouldn't be able to like really share those things with each other. So
yeah, makes sense. I'm gonna pause on questions real quick and open the floor to you.
So I'm just going to go over a couple of things that the North Portland Tool Library has done that you guys didn't cover. One thing that I spoke to a couple of you about was we approached the police bureau or the police department in our quadrant. Having a relationship with them was really important to us. We do offer our tools for free, and we haven't had a big track record of losing tools, but the thing about the state of Oregon is if we go and try to reclaim the tool from someone, we actually have no legal recourse. All we can do is take them to small claims court, but what we do is we bring an officer with us when we go to pick up the tools from their house. Now that officer's not going to arrest him. That officer's not going to do much unless it comes to blows, which it never does. But what that officer does is create an atmosphere where that person then feels obligated to give back. So I highly recommend that. And they're just good to have on your side anyways. I mean, the Seattle Tool Library losing all their tools, I bet it would have been really beneficial if you already had a relationship with a police officer that knew your organization had been working with your organization.
And when they did come, they had like no interest in us because they didn't understand what we were.
They don't know what you are. They think you're stupid for giving tools out for free. But you find that one officer that believes in what you're doing. They're people too. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, but they're people too. In their off time, they're people too, and they sometimes want to see stuff like that in their neighborhood too. So that's a really good way to have community outreach, because they're supposed to be community driven. You get the right cop and you'll get a community driven cop, and they will be on your side and they will be really beneficial. Another thing that we do is we don't charge for our workshops. So, and we also make them open to everyone, not just our membership. That brings a lot of people in that didn't know who we were, because our workshops our tool library is really small and in a basement, and we hold our workshops sometimes upstairs in the community space, but sometimes off-site. And when we do that, other people who have never even heard of us, tool library members invite other people that have never heard of us, and then we get the word out more. And then we get to spread the word about other tool libraries like Northeast, Southeast, if they're not from our region. Also, on one of our fundraisers, we do something really fun called Hammer Through Hump Day every year. And it's always on a Wednesday in June. And we partner with a brewery. We partner with all of our local businesses who give us wonderful, wonderful contributions for our raffle every year. We have a bicycle shop that gives us a bike trailer every single year to raffle off, a really nice bike trailer that costs like $500 and something. Huh?
Have you ever won it?
No, I try every year. And I've won some other cool stuff like massages, get a coffee shop. I mean, hit up everybody. And the more you build relationships with the businesses, the more you've strengthened your relationship with the community base. I also wanted to make sure that we were all remembering that our language is always evolving, and we need to really be aware of our language evolving, and that it's important to use the word community member, because not everybody is a citizen. And I hope that you're all interested in serving more than just the citizens of this country, and that you're interested, or your other countries, and you're also interested in providing services to the community members that are also servicing your community as well. And then other than that, so at that fundraiser, one of the things that we do to bring outsiders' interest into our community, because our community is just the North Portland quadrant, at that fundraiser we offer something called a golden ticket, and it is a membership to someone outside of our region, and it's a raffle item, so you have to, you're buying it, but so that's another way that if you wanted to borrow that idea, we're all about lending here. So
can you just explain that you offer a golden ticket for a membership to someone who's not in your community?
And not in our region, because we're very region specific. We have a very small boundary that we work within, and one of the reason we did that was because before the Northeast Portland and the Southeast Portland Tool Library even existed, I was constantly getting phone calls as to, can I join your tool library? Is there an N before your street? Are you in North Portland? No. I'm sorry. Well, what do I do? Start one. I don't know. I'll help you. I'll help you start one. And but then we decided that the best thing we could do to get people's interest built up in starting a new tool library, or to put money from outside of our community and our member base outside of that in the city to get interested in funding us, so that maybe we could grow or we could contribute to someone else starting, the idea was to offer a golden ticket. And so the golden ticket, I mean, that's one person, but you got a bunch of people shooting for that golden ticket, and then you brought in more than just that one person. You brought in a whole group of people who are gonna bid on that.
That to me seems so peculiar. Is that all across the United States, that you're restricted by certain
us in particular, because
of
our fiscal sponsor and our coalition that helps maintain us, they're part of the qualifications for us to be working with them is that we serve specifically the North Portland quadrant.
I have a question from Minneapolis, right?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask what the connection to the police looked like, what that kind of sit-down meeting was.
Well, we were really fortunate because I would begin with hitting up whatever is the closest to crime prevention in your area. There's always an officer or officers tied to crime prevention. They're way more community oriented than any other officer. So I would start with whatever your like crime prevention is in your area. Talk to them, see if you can have a meeting with them, tell them about your concerns. And your needs, and then just put out an ask, and the worst they can say is no, but at least you tried. And then as far as,
Just on this level, because we're talking this, you use it to actually collect some of the tools, and we're fairly new in this game, but for Europe been open many, many years. How often is it that tools do not get returned and you actually have to show up at someone's door and try to get it back? Is that a very
3
common?
times since 2004.
Twice in 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Once in 1 year.
It happens more frequently in Northeast. We have a bigger membership maybe, I don't know, but we definitely have a board member who has a list of very delinquent tools, and he goes around to people's houses, and sometimes the tools are in his backyard, so he just takes them back. And
right.
sometimes he knocks on the door and has a variety of interactions with the tenants.
Everybody here is actually going to get an address and a number and we're all going to split up and go get some of them.
Is that what that walk was about? I wanted to say too that like when I say 3, that's how many we actually lost, that we didn't retrieve, we never got it back. That happens all the time, and we, like I said when I was talking about building your board, you really do want someone, and I'm going to be really specific here. You want a male, and the best built male you can get, because in all honesty, if I go to the door and I go to retrieve a tool, it doesn't matter how much of a voice I put on and how much mom I put into it. I'm a woman, and we live in a society. So what we do is we had our old board chair, Doug Hartman, he would go to their house with our officer who was willing to participate in that with us. And then he would say, hey, I have these items that you clearly checked out, I need them right now. And 80% of the time they're like, oh, my bad, here you go. And we go, okay, well, just so you know, you're not a member anymore. Because you were so negligent. You've had this tool for months. And you prevented a bunch of people from using it, so you're done.
Question here?
I'm going to change the topic slightly, but I want to, in terms of your service to the community, I come from a public health background, and I think one of the important things that I've seen here is 2 things. First of all, wood dust is a carcinogen. So if you don't have an exhaust collection system, you're exposing people to stuff that they shouldn't be. And you've done that. And I think that's great. The other thing you've done is you have a saw that has a sensor on it, so that if you stick your finger in it, it doesn't cut your finger, it stops. And so the idea of safety and prevention and how that comes back into the community, and people that are using tools or have used tools for a long time and not knowing how they do it, that's tremendous. And hopefully an extension of this is maybe a discussion at some other point in terms of what are the legal and ethical implications of having a situation where people are potentially exposed to danger. How do you handle it as an organization?
So, can I say one thing really quick? Because it was a part of this that what I was supposed to say and I forgot.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Faith. It's like for that bus driver, like that bus driver has to like believe that most people can learn and pay attention. Mm-hmm. And you, Piper, said it earlier, like we losing tools, like don't get bent out of shape about it. but part of like celebrating, like I'm like talking about like somebody coming in and not knowing something, is that's like learning how to safely use tools also is like something to celebrate. You know, somebody not knowing how to do something and then getting to the point to where they can do it safely, that is something to like respect and recognize.
On that subject, do you guys do like training video, or do you refer people? You said that you were doing research with the people online. Do you have like a bank of video that you already created to show people how to use?
We don't, and part of the reason is we cannot be recognized as authorities on safety and tools. But YouTube is amazing, and I know that sounds ridiculous. I used to say it when I was at the university. What's that?
We do that all the time. It's not ridiculous.
I think it's incredibly important. We have like anything you want to know how to do is available. Like, and it would take just a couple minutes of paying attention, reading instructions, or watching a video. We say it all the time, and we try and we work really hard to build a space. And this is part of the community where somebody won't feel awkward about not knowing something. You know, we bust our asses to make sure anybody, if they have a question, they're comfortable to ask it to anybody in the space or to one of the librarians.
Yes. Sorry,
Go ahead.
I don't know if I should ask Gene about it, but would it be possible to have like a link in the catalog?
There is.
Would it be a good idea, or do you think that people should find their own way?
We talked about putting links on our tools, you know, so like it would have like our favorite link, but we have a few thousand tools, and there's probably 6,000 videos for every tool. You know, but it's, I think just saying like do some research, and like tools are like safety for tools is very specific, but some of the safety is also project specific, like material specific for certain tools and things like that. So we tell people like look up a video of this exact, you know, like this exact thing that you're working on. You're cutting laminate with, you know, like a circular saw. You know.
I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to go to the panelists and just close it out here.
Okay.
Wrap it up. Does that sound good? Ashton?
And this is piggybacking off of what you were just saying about how you're not actually allowed to give classes on safety, right? Is that right?
Well, we do teach safety on our tools, but to produce videos that are on the internet on like safety and practice, like we just don't get into that realm. But we do teach safety classes.
Okay, because we were told by the insurance company that like that would increase our liability, that if we train somebody and they then screw up, then that makes us more liable. So the insurance company's telling us not to educate people on the safety of tools, which just seemed
The
completely...
less your insurance company knows, the better.
That's true. It's hard. We had our insurance agent come in the other day, and we wanted to just like touch base with him and make sure he knew exactly what we were doing in our space. And I think it's brave of him. And
It is brave of you.
It took 2 years. And we've had insurance the whole time, but he's donated tools to us.
Nice.
So I was like, just meet with us. I want to talk to you. And he's cool. You know, like respects what we do. Didn't say anything about classes, and I kept bringing things up to be like, well, what about this? Then we do this, and this is really dangerous. You know? and he's like,
And I was like, shut up.
What we do is like it's an empowering thing, and building community and teaching people how to do things. It's amazing. But what it all boils down to is like we're teaching people how to use tools, how to fix things, and how to build things. And we are all taking a chance. Like we are all taking a chance with like liability. Like I know like our insurance agent seems to think that we're rock solid, but we're still taking a chance. All of us are taking a chance with what we are doing. But I think if we don't take that chance, like man, we're just gonna keep like sliding down the slope of our planet, like being just like completely ripped to shreds.
So are you saying that everybody that's involved in the project could be held liable? Because that's
that
definitely.
goes into structure of your company, of your nonprofit, through your fiscal sponsorship.
What about volunteers?
Our volunteers are covered under our insurance plan in our space, and most of the patrons that we have that come into our library are considered volunteers.
I'll just add, typically, it's not going to necessarily stop someone from, if someone does get hurt, it's not going to stop people from suing everyone who might possibly be involved, or there's a different culture of that. Having said that, even talking to a lot of the libraries that have been open a long time, it hasn't been a real issue, or it hasn't come up yet much. People getting significantly hurt. And someone who was supposed to be here but didn't make it, and he's going to be writing up information on liability. And I've been pushing him to get that done and how just to have some good guidelines, at least in the U.S. from a legal point of view, what you should or shouldn't be doing to help protect yourself on liability issues. I'll make sure that once that's up, it is posted to the national group and everywhere else that we can, because that is something that's key. Again, I haven't heard of, I don't know if anyone here has heard of issues with the school library getting sued by someone who has gotten hurt using the tool. I have not. But it is definitely something, I know it's one of those things that scares people from starting one up. But definitely you make sure you have liability insurance, so you just protect yourself with layers. But it's not going to stop someone from.
Can I say one thing, 2 seconds?
It's going to be your parting shot.
This is my parting shot. all of the safety talk it's a dance also. To where when somebody comes into the space and it's, oh, this is my first time doing this, it's the worst time ever to pull up a video of somebody that has had all their fingers ripped off by the same tool. You know what I mean? But it's like, but there needs to be respect also for the equipment, but to not be overrun by, like, oh, this is your first time doing this. We need to,
we need to have a talk.
We need to have a talk. Exactly, but it's a conversation, and that's like the bus driver is good at that also. About saying like, oh, is this your first time using it? Let's just watch a video together and just check it out and make sure you're totally cool with it. You want some wood out of the scrap shop, and we can make a couple practice cuts if you want to. We do stuff like that all the time. So. Okay, that's it. That's good.
Mike, do you have anything you want to add, or?
No, I think it's been a great day, and all week I've been talking about how I was looking forward to coming here to hang out with my people. And I think what you're saying is similar. Earlier is even though I haven't talked with all of you or met most of you, I feel like you're my people. And so I want to thank John, Piper, and Station North for hosting. It's been a great day so far. I'm looking forward to the party tonight.
I think that this is exactly how you build community relationships. Thank you, John and Piper and Stations North so much. Look at us. We're now an international community, and I think that is so incredible. And I also want to say how impressed I am with all of you that you're even bringing race into this conversation. I came here thinking that wasn't even going to be a topic, and I'm really, really impressed that is on your mind, because that is step one. So don't let it stop there. Keep that fire under your ass and keep yourself informed, and knowledge is power, man.
It's really good. It's really good. I'm up against a food and alcohol ending to the day. I'm going to turn it over to Piper to tell you all about the Clifton Pleasure Club, which is as pleasurable as it sounds.
Too pleasurable.
Good point. I did want to thank everyone for the good questions, and I know there are probably more, but I think everyone will continue these conversations with over libations. So I think bring your cues later on in the evening.
Okay, I feel like everyone's got, some kind of restless energy. You've been sitting, you've been thinking, your brain is about to explode. So I'm just going to take you guys for 10 seconds, if you move quickly, and you need a lot of space around you. Like make sure you can go like this and just like kind of go to the sides of the room. Make sure you got your own bubble. With the arms, you're gonna get just a little violent. A little violent. You got your own bubble. Okay. So when you've tested the waters, you've got your own bubble. Now make sure you've got space in front of you. You're not going to hit your head on a chair or a pole or anything. You know, like right here, there's space. Okay. Okay. So I just need everybody to, you know, plant your feet firmly, maybe a little bit hips width distance apart. And just take a deep breath in through your nose, like really let your rib cage expand, like so much breath you think your rib cage is gonna burst out your back, and then let it go. We're gonna do that 2 more times. Breathe it in, really expand your lungs, like you're stretching the inside of your body. When you can't take it in any more air, let it go. And last time, really make it count, like breathe in so much air, even tiny sips of air at the top, like you're gonna burst, and then slowly, slowly let it go. And now here's the fun part. So hang tight. It's kind of crazy. Works excellent with children, so I know you guys will have a great time. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to start with our hands up over our head and start with, I'll do a demonstration. Okay. We're going to do it 3 times. 3 times. So we're going to start with hands over our head and make this loud like, and then come back up. And do it 2 more times. And we call it, well, John and I call it Viking scream. And I'll give you a visual. It's like you're a little kid, like running down the coolest hill, like a Viking, and you're like, and you let it back up, okay? So ready? Everybody stand up. Meat lovers and vegetarian taco bar. We've got beers there, refreshments. You can boogie on over there by 6 if you wish. You can go back to your host house if that's an option and like relax for a little bit. You have about an hour and 20 minutes before 6. So yeah, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll have breakfast here at 9 once again. We're going to bag the walking tour because of the impending inclement weather. So I'll just reshuffle the schedule. If you want me to email it to you, I can, but just expect to be here in the morning, and we'll also do lunch here as well.
Are we going to get a family photo?
Absolutely. So maybe we'll do that tonight or first thing tomorrow or both. We'll have like the PG version in the morning, like the first one, and we'll have like the awesome one tonight.
Thank you. I mean, honestly, like, I constantly feel like the worst was when they did the tours and now they just come to the park and just like the tours and the soccer team. They all do crosses over. Exactly what you're talking about. It was white and it was weird. It was bad. And carrying like axes and implements, and I was like, and chainsaws, and like every person that comes by I talked to, I was like, how do you feel about that? They go, it looks like the Aryan Nation is going on. I was like, absolutely, because it's giant. They're huge, hanging on the front of the ceiling, and I'm like, nobody knows how does that work?
Okay, I mean for this drive for like now to the party. Because my crowd that want to go back to our own house, having out and everything, I'd rather stay here and chat. So I was looking for a drive, so maybe we could have an extra. Okay, ready to ask. You were looking at my favorite part, so you're drinking with good at what you do. Okay, so you don't sound like yeah, my niece gets that all the time. She's a bit smaller than you, but I think it's your eyes, the way you look like so like in control. I don't know, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool to tell people that more respect. I don't know. I'm not sure. My friend is totally the opposite. It's good. I found out Jennifer too. Jeffrey saw it in my This is why we always get it done, because there's like 5 people covering me.